is Donald Trump. A lot of my friends say, okay, he's made mistakes, and okay, January 6th, and okay, this and that. It is his policies that we'd be voting for. Given that pragmatic side also, do you think he is emotionally fit to be president of the United States? I disagree. I think that Trump and Biden will be the candidates, that whatever that says about the United States. Is he fit to be president of the United States? Is Donald Trump fit to be president?
This is the way I'll answer that, Geraldo, which is, if you believe in his policies, he's what he's advertising as his policies, he's the last person who could actually execute them and achieve them. He does not have the discipline. He does not have the ability for strategic thinking and linear thinking or setting priorities or how to get things done in the system. It is a horror show when he's left to his own devices. And so you may want his policies, but Trump will not deliver Trump policies. He will deliver chaos and, if anything, lead to a backlash that will set his policies much further back than they otherwise would be.
When even Bill Barr, the guy who fell over himself carrying water for Trump as Attorney General, concedes that the most ineffective part of a Trump administration would be Donald Trump himself, that pretty much says it all. And of course, he points to the fact that Trump is so grossly incompetent that he'll actually ensure that his policies don't get passed. And on one hand, Bill Barr is correct, given the fact that legislatively speaking, Trump actually has very little to show for his presidency, besides, of course, inciting an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. But the only major legislative achievement of his term was a tax cut for millionaires and billionaires. But on the other hand, I would argue that Trump didn't actually care about any of those policies that he espoused. He just introduced those things to get elected. Trump didn't care about infrastructure. He didn't care about lower healthcare costs. He didn't care about protecting earned benefits. The guy ran as a populist and then ignored every single populist policy position when he actually had the chance to pass something. He exploited their audience for their votes and then abandoned them the moment he took power. And for those who say, well, it's difficult to get stuff passed, the irony here is that Joe Biden actually did get the things passed that Trump ran on. He got an infrastructure package passed. Why? Because it wasn't a talking point for Biden, it was an actual priority. We're ensuring that earned benefits don't get cut now, with Biden even getting Republicans to agree not to cut them during his State of the Union speech. Why? Because, again, it wasn't a talking point, it was a priority. We got the government to negotiate lower drug prices. Why? Because it wasn't a talking point, it was a priority. All of which goes to show that if politicians want to get something done, they'll do it. But when they're content to just introduce platitudes for votes, then that becomes pretty clear too. And just one more point here for those who are welcoming Bill Barr onto the right side of history. Bill Barr is one of the principal architects for Trump's perception that the rules don't apply to him. Remember, when Robert Mueller issued his final report on Russian collusion, here's how Bill Barr interpreted the special counsel decision not to indict for obstruction.
But I will say that when we met with him, Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein and I met with him, along with Ed O'Callaghan, who is the principal associate deputy. On March 5th, we specifically asked him about the OLC opinion and whether or not he was taking the position that he would have found a crime but for the existence of the OLC opinion. And he made it very clear several times that that was not his position.
And yet here's what Robert Mueller actually said.
If we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so.
In other words, Bill Barr straight up lied about what the Mueller report said before allowing the report to be released to the public because he wanted to carry water for Trump. So I get that now that Trump is out of office, Bill Barr is trying to rehab his image, but he is as much an architect of the Trump-era corruption as anyone else, and no amount of revisionist history is going to change that. In fact, I'd argue that while Barr is clearly trying to help himself, another reason is the fact that Barr is a partisan actor and is only interested in his party taking power. And he recognizes here that Trump is going to make that more difficult. That's why he seems to be jumping ship now. Not because of any principled stance, but because he wants to notch political victories, and Trump's legal troubles and ineffectiveness as a politician make that more difficult for him. At his core, Barr is a Republican hack trying to present himself as anything but. Need more proof that this has nothing to do with principles and everything to do with carrying water for the Republican Party? A few weeks back, Bill Barr was on air, went through all of the reasons why Trump's actions were indictable, and then when asked point blank if he would vote for Trump again over a Democrat, which would seem to be the logical conclusion of Bill Barr's tough talk, here's what Barr actually said.
You say in your book it's time for the party to move on from Trump. Liz Cheney has said he is not fit to serve and should not be ever near the Oval Office again. Do you agree with that?
Well, I certainly have made it clear I don't think he should be our nominee, and I'm going to, support somebody else for the nomination.
But if he is the nominee and you have your choice is Donald Trump or whoever's running on the Democratic side, would you vote for him?
Because I believe that the greatest threat to the country is the progressive agenda being pushed by the Democratic Party, it's inconceivable to me that I wouldn't vote for the Republican nominee.
So even if he lied about the election and threatened democracy, as you write in your book, it's better than a Democrat.
It's hard to project what the facts are going to turn out to be 3 years hence, but as of now, it's hard for me to conceive that I wouldn't vote for the Republican nominee.
I mean, dear God, if this guy isn't the absolute definition of party over country partisan hack, I don't know what is. So in case you thought that somehow Bill Barr had seen the light, just remember that the guy who carried water for Trump's corruption is still the same guy we're seeing today. All of which is to say, none of these people stand for anything other than power. Trump may be inconvenient for them at the moment, but as soon as he's the best they've got, they'll come crawling back because it was never about taking a principled stand, it was simply about helping themselves politically. And for the Republican Party, that's all it'll ever be. A point that Jamie Raskin laid out far more eloquently than I ever could.
What a scandal for Abraham Lincoln's party. He started that party as a party of union. He hated the know-nothings. He hated the racism. His Lyceum address was all about the dangers of mob violence after the attack on Elijah Lovejoy, an abolitionist newspaper editor. And he said, if downfall ever comes to America, it will not be from monsters abroad, it will be from the evil within. And he was clearly thinking about the slave power and racism in the country, the same forces, the same kind of forces that have arrayed themselves today against the constitutional order.
Before you go, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please make sure to follow this Facebook page. And if you want to support my work even further, the best way is to subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. There you can check out my interviews with major players in the world of politics, including President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, Jamie Raskin, and so many more. Plus other interviews that live exclusively on the podcast. Just search No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen wherever you listen to podcasts.